Welcome to the Paper Snob. This is Tara. Today I'm working on All About the Mouse monthly YouTube hop. Each month we get some sort of prompt, and I'm going to post the prompt for September up here for you in the corner so that you can see what our prompt is, and it's just a photo. So I took a pretty good look at that photo. And honestly, the first thing that it reminded me of was Mulan, but I don't have anything Mulan related in my Disney photos. But if you look closer at that lantern, you see a clock, and you see Hook, Peter Pan, and Tinkerbell. And so I have these fun photos from our trip to Disney in 2011 of the topiary art in, I think, Epcot. And I thought I would go ahead and scrap these photos. And I'm going to be using 49 Market's Nature Study. I pulled out quite a bit of this stuff from that collection. I'll be playing with it as I go along, but I also have this Seven Gypsies. It's called a short base. It is adhesive. I don't think I've ever used anything like this, but it says flexible adhesive sheets add dimension and interest to all your projects. I was gifted this from a friend, and I haven't used it yet because I was waiting for the right time to use it. And I think that time is now. So that's going to end up on my page. And I'm going to be using some of the foundations papers from Nature Study. And then I pulled out some other bits and pieces as well, like the cover sheet with all of the ephemera that you can fussy cut. I don't know how much of that I'll actually use, but I also added in my collection of toast from 49 Market, just because it kind of goes well with the Nature Study stuff, and I thought maybe I would use up a little bit of it. I don't have any of the paper from this collection, just this pack of embellishments. And I also have this scrap that I have used. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video. We're going to get started, and I will be right back. Alright, I took a little bit of time off camera and I used my Cameo to cut some cut files. The first thing I used was this scroll that I have set up in my Pirates folder. I do have a Pirates folder. I gave one of my kids a pirate birthday party a long time ago and used my Cameo to make a lot of the decorations. So I have a folder in there just for pirate stuff. And comes in handy because my sister dresses like a pirate sometimes, and so if I ever scrapbook any of her photos, then I have cut files all set aside, ready to go. So what you're seeing me do here is something that I've talked about on my videos, but I don't think I have showed you what I mean. So I cut 3 of those scrolls, and I'm going to stack them, and that's what I'm doing here, is I'm gluing the 3 together so that I have a base that has a little bit of texture and dimension, but not a ton. Now, a lot of times I do this only with titles, but in this case I did it with both the scroll and the Tinkerbell. I think the Tinkerbell is super cute. I did have to pull a couple of more sheets of paper from my Nature Study collection, and I ended up using almost the entire sheet that I cut Tinkerbell from, and then also managed to use up a lot of that blue that you see there. So I'm doing the same thing here. I am layering her up to give her some dimension. I think she's super cute. Her wand was a little bit difficult for the Cameo to cut because it was very, very thin. So not a big deal. I'm going to put a star on it anyway, so you won't really notice that. So I'm going to be doing a lot of distressing with my Tim Holtz distress tool here. I cut this circle to use as a base behind the clock because I felt like it would show up better and have some contrast if I cut a circle and layered it behind it. Like I said, I hadn't used this sort of product before. My friend gifted me this one as well as I think one or two others. I still have the others in my stash, but I thought this was perfect. I remembered that I had it. That's what unpacking does for you when you move, is you start seeing things that you don't normally look at on a daily basis, and you remember that you have them. And so it's great to get this out of my stash. I am only going to scuff up the edge on one side of that piece of pattern paper. I'm going to be getting an ink out, and I'm going to be using that ink to ink up the edges of things. The ink I chose is brushed corduroy. I chose that to ink the edges of all of the papers, including the blue in my layout. And I chose it because it kind of looked about the same color as Tinkerbell. It was a neutral color, and I really like how it set off some of the edges of the things that I'm inking. Now, as you can probably see, I have pre-laid out the photos, how I would like them to go on this layout. I do that a lot when I am creating a 2-page layout. I'll take the photos that I'm going to be using and I'll arrange them on my Versamats. And I did this before I even put the paper down. And I arranged them so that I know how I want them to go. And so before I started actually recording this section of the video, I went ahead and arranged them on those foundations papers. So the blue that I'm using for matting is actually a piece of the packaging. If you turn it over, it's the foundation's cover sheet for the foundations paper in this collection. But on the back side, they always usually put something to fussy cut or another sheet of paper. And in this case, it was another solid that isn't in the actual papers. It's this lovely dark grungy blue. And I have 2 sheets of it because I have 2 packs of the foundations paper for this collection, but I was really trying to make sure I used up as much as possible. And so as I am working, you're going to be seeing that a lot of times when I flip it over, you're going to see where I finagled a background and I cut the mat and then taped it together with washi tape on the back so that I would have a full 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 mat for each photo. This way I didn't really have a whole lot of scraps left from the one full sheet that I used, and I still have almost a half sheet left, maybe even a little bit more than a half sheet of the other piece left because I used it in this manner to create my mats. And this is just one way you can really stretch out something, especially if you seem to only have one piece of a color of cardstock and it's midnight and you can't run to Michael's or Joann's and get another sheet. Ask me how I know how this works. I do scrapbook a lot at night, and sometimes if I've not pre-planned a layout and I grab a sheet of cardstock that is just perfect, and there's only one and I need 2 to mat photos, I will washi tape backs together to make it work. So I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges of this circle as well, so to help it stand out against the background. I really like that clock face. Now I'm kind of sad that I don't have more than one of them, but it is fine. I could cut something similar with my Cameo, I'm sure. So I really love how that layered together behind my photos. I'm going to ink up Tinkerbell, and I'm going to set her above the clock face, and kind of just, she's going to be kind of resting there, and you can see where her wand is kind of wonky because she just didn't cut very well. I'm going to add a little bit of wet glue behind that clock, and I'm going to go ahead and glue down the other photo on this right hand side. This pretty much gets the base of my layout together. I'm going to be putting, of course, other embellishments and a title here, but I do at least have the basics down. So I'm digging through these little pieces of acrylic. These are from Color Cast Designs, and I got the pleasure of meeting the owner of this company. She came over to my house to scrapbook this week, and I was super, super pleased to meet her. I do have a little bit of her acrylic pieces in my stash. Not a lot, but a little. And I knew that when I bought pieces at We Create last year, I tried to buy what I thought that I would use, and guess what? I haven't used any of it. Shame on me. Anyway, so I pulled out the little bag of stars, and I'm going to be using 3 of those on this layout. I'm not going to be using a whole lot of her acrylics here because I don't have the right colors for this layout, but the yellow does work fairly well. I almost glued a photo to a photo there. That was silly. As you can see, I'm scuffing up the edges of all of the photo mats. Again, these are 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. My photos are all 3 by 4, and I have 10 photos, so I have 10 little mats, and that is why I had to use washi tape and scraps to glue a few of them together so that I had full-size mats for all of my photos. I said I do this very often, especially if I know I only have 1 sheet of a color of cardstock, and I just kind of try to make it work. Behind a photo, you can't really see the seams, and especially not on this 49 and Market paper because it's grungy looking, and you literally cannot see the seams unless you're, using a microscope. And I do have a little trouble scuffing the edges that are smaller than the others, but I do make it work and get it all done. And that is kind of how I get all of this done. I forgot to ink the edges of these mats, and I'm going to go ahead and do that because if I don't stop and do it while I think of it, I will completely forget, and I'll have half of them inked and half of them not, because that's how I roll. So to do things as I remember. I'm not truly scatterbrained, but I can be at times. And, I was really struggling trying to get this layout completed today. I'm running a little bit behind, behind what I considered the schedule that was in my head, and I'm behind because of that. And anyway, so I'm going to scuff up the edges of this sheet of paper. I really love this plaid. I wish I had a 3rd sheet of it. I don't. So one piece of it is from the scrap. That's the piece that I've already glued down on the right hand side. And then I cut into a new sheet to get this border, and I intentionally cut this border 5.5 inches wide because I knew that I wanted it to hold all of my photos that are going vertically down the page. So this way I have it's basically like I double matted those photos. So again, I'm going to be scuffing up the edges, and I think from here on out I remember to ink as I go so I don't have to go back and do a whole bunch. These photos are really fun. This was our first trip to Disney. We've gone twice. The second time I've actually already scrapbooked all of the photos because it was the Christmas thing that they do in December. My husband bought it as a family Christmas gift. He was in Korea at the time, and he wanted to take us on a special trip for Christmas, and so he bought it, and it was a gift to the kids. We bought all the tickets, and we just had a good time that night. So all of those photos have been scrapbooked because it was a nighttime parade and visit, not really riding the rides and spending an entire day in Magic Kingdom. It was just for the Christmas celebration. And so I only had a few layouts to do of it. But for our first trip, which is where these photos came from, having an entire album that I really, really need to get done, and I have not finished it yet. I have done the rest of 2011 photos, but not these. I just kind of get stuck because I feel like everything looks the same. And, lo and behold, you don't have to use all of the Disney papers. This is not Disney paper. Duh. That is where I was kind of hanging up because I had bought all of that themed Disney paper and I got tired of it. And so, not saying that I won't go back and use some of it, but it makes my heart happy to be able to use non-Disney themed stuff for a Disney layout. I don't know why my brain thought that I could only use the Disney paper. I'm silly like that sometimes. So I'm gonna glue down this scroll, and initially I had thought I would put my title on the scroll, but in order for it to fit on my layout, I had to make it pretty small, and then the title didn't really fit. So I'm going to use it as a place to hold my journaling labels, which you just saw me line up over there. Now I'm going to just kind of start the process of embellishing. I'm going to be using mushrooms and a lot of the greenery, and you might ask, why on earth are you using mushrooms? Well, I don't know about you, but when I think of fairies, I think of mushrooms. So I thought that it was appropriate to use mushrooms and greenery on this layout as embellishments with Tinkerbell and the clock, because she's a fairy. Fairies live in the woods, and there's mushrooms in the woods. I've been in the woods. I've seen lots of mushrooms. Have yet to see a fairy, though. So I'm going to glue down these labels. I'm kind of putting them on there wonky. There's not going to be a whole lot of journaling on this page because this layout is just part of many that are telling the story of our visit in each park. And no, I don't have an album for each park. It's just one album, and I'm praying that all of the layouts will fit in one album so I don't have to try to find another album. It is a Creative Memories album, and I think it is no longer made, which makes it either I'd have to get it on eBay and hope they have one, and it'd probably be super expensive, or I would never be able to find another one. Either way. So I've got to make one single album work for this visit to Disney. I'm kind of just having fun. And oops, I tore that little fern, but it is okay. You will not be able to tell once everything is glued down. I love layering up 49 Market's laser die cuts. They are my favorite. Even sometimes when I struggle getting them out, I still love these die cuts. I love everything about 49 Market. Who am I kidding? So I'm just having a blast. Now, originally I bought this collection because when we lived in New York in 2020 to 2022, we did a lot of hiking, especially during the COVID months when we were finally allowed to leave base. We did a lot of hiking because if you go out in nature and you're by yourself, you don't have to wear a mask. And so we did a lot of hiking as a couple, but also with the kids, just to kind of get us out of the house and not get cabin fever as bad. And so I have tons and tons of photos of hiking trips that we took. And so I'm using up some of my precious nature study, but we know they'll bring out more stuff, and I'll probably find tons of other things to use for those pictures when I actually get around to scrapbooking them. And so I am fussy cutting the wood round from one of the product packaging sheets to kind of go underneath my title. It just kind of gives it a little anchor point. I'm also going to cut this little, it's a wood sign, and it says wander and wonder, or wonder and wander. And I thought it was very appropriate for a trip to Disney because the whole time I was there, we were wandering around with our mouths hanging open. I never thought that I would love Disney as much as I did. I figured it was just another theme park that I was going to be taking my kids to and riding a few rides and, letting the kids have a blast. But I was amazed at the Disney parks. Just couldn't believe that it took so long for us to go. All right, I got this layout completely finished. I'm pretty happy with the way that this turned out. Off camera, I glued everything down, and I did add some of those sequins that I showed you in this little baggie at the beginning. I felt like the colors went really well, and it offset the 3 stars that I put on here. as well. The stars are from Color Cast Designs, and I felt like we needed a little sparkle there for where her wand is, especially since it didn't cut as well as I had hoped. But I got the journaling and title and everything on here, and I'm thrilled with the way that it turned out. Make sure that you check that description box below, because there is a list of creators who are participating this month with All About the Mouse, and I hope that you will watch their videos and leave them some love. Everybody works hard on these creations, and I hope that you will enjoy watching some of my friends' videos. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all of you who are helping me to grow this channel. You guys are very important to this process, and I am so grateful. If you are a new person watching my channel for the very first time, I would love to have you as a subscriber. Just click that button below. If you want YouTube to notify you, there is a bell down there. You can click that and they'll send you an email when I post new content. I try to get new content out 2 to 3 times per week on average. It just kind of depends on what I've got going on. And for the month of September, my goal is to try to finish all of the scrap timber prompts. So you will notice that there is a second video today on my channel, and that is because I goofed and didn't combine this hop with scrap timber, but that's okay. More content for you to enjoy. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye.